Hello and welcome to Black Leaders Inclusion Talks. My name is IK, and today we're speaking with Kareen Griffiths, who is the co-founder and director at Evenfields Careers. Tell us why you decided to partner with Black leaders.
Yeah, I think the one thing I've seen or tried to understand is how do you come together and leverage influence broader than just our business, I suppose, or just me and Denise. Mm-hmm. We know we care about this issue, and we know lots of other people care about this issue. So I like the fact that Black leaders are looking at the whole life cycle, from education through to employment, and through to retention, and looking at an allyship. So they're looking at the Black leaders piece, but also understanding the elements of that. We can't do it just as a Black community. Allyship's really important. And so for me, it's knowing that we can try and help, not just like even as a business, but just try and help our communities with what the whole piece is trying to achieve in any way and form we can, really. So that was the bit that made us feel passionate around what can we do to be part of it. It's that collaborative feel, which is powerful.
Right. No, it really is. It really is. And so yeah, tell us personally, in your career, have you found any, have you had any issues or any struggles being, not only a Black person, but a Black woman? Has there been issues that you found, in your I guess in your sector?
Yeah. For me, I think the challenge, I don't think I've probably been so mindful when it comes to anybody getting in my way or feeling like I can't do what I need to do. And I think that comes probably from early life. Okay. So, in my early days, I can think back to, when I'm growing up and all that, because that's kind of my grounding, really, how you grow up, the values that are set for you. And I just remembered really early seeing things from women in my family that were not just like the norm. So what I mean by that is, very early days, I went to Canada. Canada was like a holiday place that we would go to, because a lot of my mom's family's on that side in Canada.
Right.
So I remember going there when I was 9 and staying at my aunt's house, and they were the cousins, mass family, loved it. We were there for 4 weeks or whatever. I do remember my cousins, and I remember significant my 3 sort of they're Black women, and they're a bit older than me. But I remember the one, she used to ride a motorbike.
Oh, wow.
So I never, I never see many women riding a motorbike, and then you don't see, many Black women riding a motorbike for a start. Right. And I just remember that. And I remembered my other cousin, she was into fitness, but she was also a fitness model. Okay. So she ran her own business, she was a fitness model. And then my other cousin, she was an accountant, and therefore she studied a lot and basically been successful in her accountancy. So these role models or representation happened very early doors. So I don't think I probably took it in at being 9, but I think it got me to think about what was possible as years go on. So if I was looking to achieve certain things in my goals, I always looked from the lens of what was possible, because I never really saw anything outside of, that wasn't possible, or the fact that I knew it was possible because I'd seen it. So even if the climate or other people are saying, I was kind of quite, well, I know it's possible, because I can see it's possible. I can see that my cousin here who's on the motorbike or whatever, it's, she's just got on and carried on like that. But I'm just thinking there's nothing wrong with that. And so I think there's just things that I've seen that opened up what was possible. Yes. And so when I went into working life, I always came with that mindset. And don't get me wrong, there has been times where you go for something or you go for a role. And I remember going for a role, which was an international role.
Okay.
And I had clearly got in my mind, I probably won't get it because, probably because, you know, I'm black.
Mm-hmm.
The two people who are going for it are white.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they've been here a lot longer than I have. You know, so I know I can do the international role, but they, you know, I kind of sort of subconsciously thought they'll get it, you know, and I had to go with my husband as well. And if I was going to go for my husband, I thought they're going to go alone. So I thought there's so many obstacles outside of just me as that I thought, no, they probably won't bother. And when they offered me the role, I was shocked because they were like, well, we'll wait for you to get married. You know, we'll reimburse you for your honeymoon. So sometimes if you have to be really focused to make sure that you don't sometimes let the environment dictate the choices that you make.
Right.
But that was because I had that support, I suppose, around me, a good support network.
Right.
That helped me do that.
Which is powerful because, you know, and you you mentioned Canada, and Canada holds a very special place in my heart because I've got 3 sisters, and the oldest of the 3 actually lives in Canada. She lives in Toronto specifically.
Oh, yes.
And has been there for, she's been there for, what is it now, like 15 years, I think.
Okay.
I've been there once. I've been there once. Yeah. Have you? Yes. I'm guessing you've been there more than once, or?
Yes. It became like my second home. So I used to go there, you know, for my holidays regular. Yeah.
Right. A beautiful place, man. Absolutely beautiful. And you know, and she's a very you know, successful barrister over there, and she does commercial law, and you know, she's really thriving. And but it going by what you said about role models, it goes to show how important representation is, isn't it, in one's life, especially, you know, in the formative years.
Yes.
And you know, it's such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
So with that being said, why do you feel personally, I mean, you've given some indication of that, but why do you feel personally that you can definitely help affect, you know, change moving forward?
Because I think I've navigated corporate life, so I've navigated like those corporate organisations, and I kind of understand a bit about how sometimes you need to communicate, basically. For me, there's a big piece around how to connect with people and how to communicate in order to influence, in order to drive change. So because I have that skill set, sometimes people maybe underestimate how important that skill set is. They underestimate, really, to influence something, you need to know how to do it, and you've got to do that sometimes differently with different people. So it's about being really self-aware. I know that I can help people to be more self-aware, to be more comfortable with themselves in order to have that confidence to have the conversations to drive change. So I think that's really why I feel so passionate about stuff, because I think that we, as a community, we have all this skill set, we have all this talent. And then if we maybe don't feel confident about things, and that's what we see sometimes when we do what we do, we see there's this lack of confidence because there's not enough representation. But also at the same time, there's this external narrative that people are trying to deal with. And that is, I think for me, that is the part that's really challenging, because that generation is now has all this access to the technology, to the news, etc. This external environment, you know, that you can make it, but you can have all these obstacles, and therefore that's quite a lot to deal with. You know, so I definitely think, as you said, it's really important for us to share as many stories as we can as people. But as one of the graduates said to me, you owe it to us. You owe it to us to tell us how we do this. Not this is what we need to do. You owe it to us to tell us how we have these conversations, or how we get, you know, in the most intricacies of detail, to be honest with you. That's where that sort of what I hear. We want to know how we do this now. It's great you're telling us this is what you've done, but now we want to know how did you do it when you decided to apply? What did you think about? What didn't go right? They want to really know those real mechanics. And
with that being said as well, so what advice would you give to CEOs and I guess leaders in order to help them tackle I guess culture change within their organization?
You know, most of the conversations I have with leaders is to really understand their own position first.
Right.
Because they sometimes feel like, sometimes they're always thinking about, right, we've got this to do and we've got these commercial outcomes to do, etc. But I'm always trying to tap into what are they, where are they? Mm-hmm. Because you can only live a falsehood for so long as a leader. Mm-hmm. If you want to drive change, people are looking for that connection with you as a leader. And if you can't connect with yourself and the changes you've got to make, it's very difficult for you to drive different, expect people to be different when you're not doing it. So it's that vulnerability, it is that honesty, it's that piece of they're going to go through a journey and what's driving them to actually do that. And is it just, if you just try and use, you know, it's an emotive subject, so you can't just, you know, culture, inclusiveness, this is about using emotion, not just tools. So if they've got to really understand their emotional intelligence around themselves. Right.
And with Evenfields, you mentioned a graduate. So is it, do people, some, I guess, individuals go through Evenfields? How does the graduate side of things work? How does that work?
Yeah, so because of the social media, we have all kinds of people following us, from, you know, graduates from universities, obviously, through to people who are just working in a job, who are looking for a job, or some people who aren't, but they're following us, and sometimes something comes up. So we get quite a passive audience as well, because we're not just talking about jobs all day. We're talking about things that are happening in our community, or we're talking about how you support your Black-owned businesses. We're talking about people who are being successful, and we showcase that. So it's like a community, really, in our world. It's like bringing the community together so that somebody might see something that they want, or they might see something that somebody else wants on that, you know, in that. So we showcase, you know, those employers, those inclusive employers who are on a journey. Right. So, you know, when we talk to those inclusive employers, they'll say, well, this is where we are. And we're like, well, this is about, you know, being honest around where you are, you know, and that's fine, because you can't sack all the board and invent a load of Black people on your leadership team. You're on a journey, and it's not going to be perfect, and it involves change. But how do we share that with people? Because it's about perception. And we definitely know with a couple of the people that we partner with, a couple of businesses that we partner with, where I've spoken to our, we have an intern who's now permanent with us. Okay. And he's a real good sense check, you know, because he's from that, you know, age bracket. Right. And when we signed up one of the companies, he was like, oh, I would never even consider working, you know, straight, you know, you just looked at the forefront of that company before we started. Right. It was like, oh, no, that's not the type of business I could see myself at. Right. And then we talked to the organisation about and they were doing some fantastic internal initiatives, actually, and even some, you know, the Black employees, Black talent, all that, they've got so much going on that wasn't really out there. So when we started to look at that and share that, it's just so funny how that who we have now looks at it and goes, God, do you know what, I never would have thought that, you know, what they're doing is pretty cool in some, you know, and that's the thing, it's the initial perception. No, corporations, rule them out, start my own business, that's where we need to go. But actually, you need both. You need both. Right. It's not one way or the other. You need both. The corporate companies are there, and you can be successful. And also, being part of that system means you can influence change. If you if you're a leader in that business, you can bring in more people from, you know, your community, and you understand that you can drive those changes in the business. Right. It's, so you guys, you infiltrate, you get into the behind the scenes. Could you tell us just, I mean, you don't have to tell us the name of the company, of course, but could you tell us some of the kind of initiatives that they were doing in regards to, Black inclusion and things like that? Yeah, so basically they do like sort of you got your profiles, and they talk about those leadership journeys and stuff, and they've obviously got their networks and stuff, safe space conversation stuff. But then it was interesting. We were talking to someone who was working there who'd only been there a couple of months, but it was about the amount of autonomy that person had in order to make recommendations and actually be involved in that from an inclusive perspective. So, like, let's take over Instagram, let's, reach out to Black community and take over the company Instagram on this particular day. And so it was more, and even when I've talked about the Black-owned businesses part, it's about thinking about, well, actually, they're open to coming to talk to our Black-owned businesses. You know what I mean? So it's about, they've got expertise in them. They're going to come and maybe talk for free and help our Black-owned business community think about how they can do things better from that lens. So it's taking, so it's always about, for us, it's about the business, the companies, corporations recognising that there is a Black-owned community, and how do we support that? Then we've got our and we've got our employees, and how do we support that? And how do we give them a voice? But what's interesting is that with that organisation, or with some of the organisations, if you're really good at inclusion and doing inclusion, that helps, because those other people, so there's, when I was talking to them and they've got that generation where they've got people who are deaf, disabled, they are looking to work with different people. They don't want to work with just white disabled or white, they understand it. So the more diverse, the more the expectation is to be more diverse. And that's what we see. And if you focus on the inclusion, which is what has been happening with some of the organisations, they're focusing on the inclusion. When they start to see gaps, sometimes it's the actual employees that are driving that conversation who aren't Black. So what are we doing? So what are we doing about Black employees? What are we doing about this community? They're actually challenging the organisation. So it's not always the Black people have got to put their heads above the parapet and be exhausted and everything. Actually, I've seen more than one organisation. The actual white people have said, what are you doing about this then? What are you doing about, or what are you going to do about this in inclusion? So it's not even always the Black community having to use their voice all the time. That's right. That's why it's so.
Which is so. This is why it's again so important. Why you have allies that really help break down those barriers and help push your voice by using their voice. Which a lot of times resonates louder in a lot of arenas. It's clear that Evenfields after 10 years it's going it's going well, right?
Evenfields is 1 year old.
Right.
Evenfields is 1 year old. So I've been working for myself. I've been working for myself in change and comms for 10 years, and then me and Denise and I came together in it's only 1 year.
So it's a seedlings, Wow. How are you finding that then with it being
a year?
1 year? 1 year is crazy. It's crazy how 1 year is a long time, but it's not, is it?
No, I mean, it's been a crazy year for us, because you're having a go at this business, and you're trying your best to do it as authentically as you can, in the sense of that business comes to you and you have to challenge those businesses around how serious you are, and that actually, if you partner with us for a month, that's not going to really drive anything. You've got to decide to invest in it, because that is literally what that journey is about. It's about going together and how do we influence change in that way. So we set up the business last year, and we probably started pushing the business probably like June time after COVID, because we weren't quite sure about what to do in terms of what's the best thing to do to support the community and everything. So it's only like June time. So we were really pleased, because we had like HS2 sign up with us, and we had like Big Yellow, and we had St James's Place Wealth Management. So they've all partnered with us over the last 3 months, really. Right.
And do you feel, with the current climate, with things that happen, of course, happened in America and reverberated all around the world, with obviously George Floyd and things, of course, still happening. I guess that, it's not the right way to say it, but I guess has the timing clearly affected, what you guys are doing?
I think that what it's done is then kind of sort of cemented some thoughts in people's minds. So it was a conversation that was on the radar before with some organisations, and some organisations were like, okay, well, we know we need to do it, and there's sort of like that. And then all I think it's done is it's just speeded up the process, really.
Right.
Okay, you know, actually we do, look what, you know, the world is telling us this.
Yeah. People are, you know, for a long time were very blinded and still are in a lot of ways, you know, about the realities. Yeah, it's with that being said, I know Black Inclusion Week is something Black leaders are going to be kicking off very, very soon. So what are your thoughts about Black Inclusion Week?
Well, why not? You know, I think that it's an exciting time, but I just think like, yeah, it is about time, really.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with celebrating, you know, our Black culture and stuff like that. It's like everybody celebrates their culture. Yes, people are probably thinking that, okay, I think it's probably because it's coming such a shoehorned effect because of BAM. People feel probably really overwhelmed because it hasn't like seeped around. There's just been this like full on for some people. But you know, I think if you come from a place of why not, what is really, you know, why wouldn't we? And instead of like, it's our right, so our right. I'm very much like, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we celebrate good stuff? Why wouldn't we celebrate a culture? I don't understand why we wouldn't. And people find it hard to kind of go, well, we wouldn't, because I said, well, if you want to say, if they said, well, what about this culture? I said, well, let's celebrate it then. It's not a problem. It's not like don't do one or the other. If you want to celebrate whatever you celebrate, we celebrate it. Don't be upset because we want to celebrate something.
It's just unfortunate, isn't it, that, you know, we know the reasons why it's put at the forefront in such a, as you said, quite a shoehorned way. There is obviously, you know, context behind that, and until we, you know, get into which we're all pushing for, a level playing field of life, representation, role models, we wouldn't have to make it such a, oh, let's just have it, you know, like even Black History Month, like just to, you know, we should be celebrating, you know, our culture in general every day. Whether it's on, you know, television or you know, social media, just every day. But you know, you know, we're of course working towards that. So, you know, the fight goes on. So, do you have any other messages you'd like to send to people watching this, or?
You know what? Just find comfort in the steps that we make, really, and really try and find the light. I always say, try and find the light, try and find the progression in the steps that are being made. And even if it's not being made as quickly as you'd like, take comfort in those successes and just try and take one thing, one change at a time, one step at a time, and really take care of yourselves, because it is a really challenging time for some people. So just make sure that you look after yourself in the process. No, that's a beautiful message, and I feel a great way to end this, Kareen. Thank you.
You know, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for inviting me to come and just share some thoughts.
Beautiful thing.
Hopefully it's helped.
So listen, have a fantastic rest of the day.
Thank you.
And you know, we hope to speak to you real soon.
Lovely. And you, take care.
And you too.
Bye-bye.
Take care.